My subscriber count has nearly doubled since I uploaded the 0 to Improving video. It's been wild to watch it take off the way it has. To all of you new viewers who came from that video, welcome to the channel. Diaries of a Beginner is one of the two series I'm doing here. It chronicles me learning Guilty Gear X2 Accent Core plus R, holy mouthful, from the ground up. I never intended to make this series when I first started. It originally came to be as an easy way to fill a content gap while I worked on videos that covered handheld fighting games. Now it's turned into a core part of the channel because of the great reception it's gotten from the exact audience I was hoping would see it. In these diary videos, I just talk over match footage about where I'm at in the journey of learning plus R. There's a lot I want to cover in this new entry, which would have been out sooner had I not caught a nasty case of the flu that put me on my ass. Weirdest thing though, while I had no trouble playing games of plus R, trying to write about it, or write anything at length, was impossible. That may not sound like a big deal, but writing is how I function as a person. I've got a journal for life in general, every video on this channel is scripted, and I write creatively elsewhere. It's kinda how I exist. Yet this flu wouldn't let me have the focus to do any amount of it. This didn't make any sense to me until I thought back to middle school, when I'd get bad sinus infections almost yearly, but still be able to get through classes just fine. The similarity it has to plus R, and where I think it separates from my writing, is that I had to keep going. With writing, it's very easy to stop if my head isn't in it. Stopping just means living more life that I can write about later. With school, stopping meant falling behind. With plus R, stopping means getting blown out. So in contrast to my last proper plus R Diaries video, playing the game has helped me get through what would have otherwise been a really shitty stretch. It gave me something to focus on when I couldn't focus on the activity I'm so used to focusing on. I've also been better about picking my spots when it comes to calling it quits. Saying, this is going to be the last set for the session, and actually sticking to it. I wasn't playing my best since being sick still sorta screwed with some stuff, like my execution was even worse than usual, but that fog did help in making it so that I went on tilt less. With that all out of the way, let's get into this entry for real. I'll begin with Okizema, since it was something I touched on in the 0 to Improvement video that all the new subscribers came from. I've really liked working on this aspect of my game. With a focus on mixing up my options there, I found myself surprised by the amount of times I would go deep into a match only to realize I hadn't done my root combo yet. It felt good to not be relying on it as much as I used to. The problem that's been arising is that I seem to now be forcing 5H more than most other options, because of how satisfying it looks when it lands a counter hit and bounces the opponent into the air. Like with how I default to 2H in a lot of neutral situations, I need to reel myself in here. I wish I remembered what led me to it, but I ended up on a Reddit post a few days ago where one of the comments talked about the concept of turns in fighting games. This person said that they used to try to take back their turn much too early and would consistently get punished for it. What helped them was working on being more patient on defense, realizing turns lasted longer than they used to think. The way this ties into my Okizema is that after reading that and making an effort to emulate it, I found that patience seeping into my approach to Oki. I wasn't defaulting to heavy slash nearly as often, and was using moves like 5S, 5K, and 2P more frequently, landing more hits as a result. This goes to show that it's all connected. Making a change in one area will affect a bunch of other areas because nothing exists in isolation. Sometimes the answer isn't to focus on a problem directly, but to go about solving issues around it that will affect it. By focusing on being patient on defense, my hope is that it will continue to seep into my offense, mitigating the impulsiveness and tunnel vision that tends to plague me. Talking about this has reminded me of when I used to teach Taekwondo. When we'd spar, I'd always have more fun playing defense, trying to block or evade everything. It made teaching people easier, since offense is naturally more fun to work on than defense. So once they got it out of their system, it made my advice easier for them to digest mid-match. The first time I caught myself making it out of a tough string in plus R with my guards still up, I got a similar high to when I would weather a flurry in sparring. I haven't felt that kind of energy in years since I left TKD. Being able to get that feeling by playing plus R in a way that helps my game grow is really cool to me. I don't know how to describe it. This has me excited for plus R in a very different way. So yeah, blocking is awesome. You know what isn't awesome though? Getting blocked. It's been happening to me way too much because I keep whiffing on the standstills that Rensen causes. Rensen is a special attack of Axel's that slides on the ground, but you don't want to jump over it since it has an extension that whips back and can punish airborne opponents. The way to beat them blocking is by going for Rashosen instead of Rensen. Rasho is Axel's unblockable projectile command grab. If you've played Guilty Gear Strive before, think of it like Axel's Winter Mantis in that game, except Rasho is a charge special that hits from the front, not a motion special that hits from the back. As I've gone about learning other parts of the game, I've left Rasho behind by accident. That's bound to happen during the learning process though, it's a fact of life. Something is going to take a backseat to the new information you're taking in. You can't process it all at once. For me, Rasho got moved to the backseat, and I'm feeling that loss up front. I've left countless chances on the table where my opponent is using faultless defense to stop the Rensen ender they've seen me use multiple times already, and I just toss Rensen again, when going for Rasho would have gone through their faultless or forced them to jump. Either I get the direct damage with Rasho, or my opponent is going to force me to get better at canceling Rasho when they jump over it and punish me. Either way, I get what I want. Next on the docket, I need to amend my matchup tier list. Mirror matches are not 50-50. I absolutely hate facing Axel. No, but seriously, he is right near Kai at the bottom of that list now. I have no fun fighting other Axels, because it always feels like an uphill climb as I try to look like more of an Axel player than the other person. I'm aware of how counterintuitive that sounds, given how I talk about other things, but I too have my weaknesses. What sucks the most is that this matchup is inherently very clunky. As the Dust Loop page on this says, Axel's tools have a lot of hard counters to his other tools. You're going to be playing a lot of guessing games. That is just so unfun for me at this stage. But after every mirror match, I try to take something away from them. In this last bunch of Axel mirrors, I've noticed my need to be charging for Rensen more often so I can extend my pressure both on hit and block. For example, say I manage to land the combo of kick, close slash, far slash out of a scramble. Holding back on the last two slash attacks would give me enough charge to follow them up with a Rensen for extra damage. Little spots like that are where I'm going to work on this for right now. Situations that are easy to come across so that I can get a lot of reps in. Now let's finish things off with Roman cancels. Right after I said I couldn't do a Roman cancel to save my life in the 0-2 improvement video, I gave them a try. But trust me, I went about it in as dumb a way as possible at first. To set the stage, I went looking for Axel Order Soul matches to watch since I've really been enjoying playing against the character lately. I came across matches Digital Watches had played against an Order Soul player that goes by the name Tales of Jade. At the start of the first match, Watches goes for a Tiger Knee Axel Bomber. The Tiger Knee prefix describes an input manipulation that allows you to do air-only special moves almost instantly without really leaving the ground. There are a few different inputs people will recommend using depending on the move, but what works for me with Axle Bombers is an input of 8, 9, 6, 2, 3. I learned how to do that with some consistency in Strive right before I stopped playing that game. It was my one real accomplishment in Strive, something I was excited to have figured out. Seeing Watches bust one out in Plus R got me wanting to fool around with it in training mode, and I just started trying to throw Roman cancels in after a little while. I didn't get anything out of it combo-wise, but it did get me used to moving my hand to the button I set as the Roman cancel shortcut. After a bit, I changed my button layout to have the shortcut where my burst shortcut would normally be. That made it easier to naturally reach the input in quick spots. Once the physical aspect was figured out, I started chipping away at learning the Rensen FRC, given how important it is for Axel's pressure at higher levels. But this isn't a technique I'm going to attempt in a real match for a good while. I feel that this is an important boundary for me to set for myself. It lets my grasp of the Rensen FRC come along at a slower pace, not rushed by the motion of a match and the frustration that might come from blowing it in a close game. This reminds me of a comment made on the 0 to Improvement video. On the topic of progress, this person said, "By the time you need to know how to do something, you're already good enough to do it." On that same token, by the time I start going for the Rensen FRC in real matches, I'll probably have been ready to do it for some time already. In the meantime, I'm going to try learning about regular Roman cancels, and see if there's a basic combo with one in it that I could work into my regular rotation right now. In retrospect, I like that I made that little comment about Roman cancels in the last video. It shined a light on a part of the game I've ignored up to this point because I thought it was too complicated for where I'm at. Turns out, it's not, at least to start practicing. This reminds me of when I first started working on DSS cancels with Law in Tekken 7. What I remember most about finally getting it is the optionality it offered. Just because I can do the higher damage combo doesn't mean I have to, or even want to. That choice of whether to do the hard combo with DSS, or the basic combo with what normally ended up being forward 2-3-4, made making decisions easier. Having more options gave me more ways to tailor my choice to the situation. Sometimes it's because of mental stack. Sometimes it's to work around a shitty online connection. And sometimes it's to guarantee a win. Sometimes, the lower damage, easier input option is the best choice. I'm looking forward to reaching that point of multiple choices with Axel. On that note, I'll pose the question to you. What's an improvement in your game that you're looking forward to? It doesn't have to be anything big or fancy, just something that gets you excited to keep practicing, playing matches, working with your character. Someone else might see your comment and give you some helpful advice, just like how people's comments on my videos have helped me improve my game. Anyways, peace.
Shotcut. 舐めすぎたんじゃない？